for coming as well. And our partners for this all-important conversation we're having this morning is the Sane Institute, and the executive director is here, Professor John Azuma, and his commitment to this. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you so much, Prof. The commitment that is exhibited to ensuring that we put this program together and all the support that we had as well from Media General has to be acknowledged as well. So, Prof, thank you so much for helping us do this. At this moment, we want to hear from the management of this home that you are now at the Executive Theatre here at TV3 and Media General. Mr. Michael Otiejay is the acting general manager of news and also the general manager of MG Digital. He's a man who wears many, many hats, but he's made some time to join us this morning. Please put your hands together for him as he gives us the welcome address.
Thank you very much, Alfred. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to say, first of all, that thank you very much for making time to join us. I know that Fridays can be a bit busy, and once again, on behalf of management, sorry that we're a bit late with this one. To start with, on behalf of the Group Chief Executive, a big welcome to all of you. I know that we are joined here by the son of Akua Denteh, Dominic Mahama Saka. Our condolences once again. We are with you in spirit and sorry for your loss once again. Professor Azuma of the Sane Institute, thank you for putting not just your immense research capacity, but also your financial resources behind this. So we are grateful for the backup. Sheikh Arimial, somebody that I admire very much from watching from a distance. We know that Fridays are pretty busy for Muslims, but we are grateful that you are here. Our eminent Queen Mothers, thank you. Thank you to everybody who has joined us. Now, I think basically for us at 3FM Sunrise, and together with the Sane Institute, this forum is to honor the memory of Madam Akua Denteh. But it's also not just to honor the memory, it's to explore us to the incredible complex nature of this subject. We know that the Sane Institute has done a lot of research work on the issue of witch camps and the rest, and generally the phenomenon of witchcraft. So by the time that our speakers explore this subject, we are hoping that we'll find a bigger way forward, a bit more commitment from the media at the policy level that will become a bit more engaging, at the religious level that whether we are on the pulpit or in the mosque or in whatever religion that we subscribe to, we would continue to remind people that persecuting people is not the way of the Lord, and that we give it a bit more thought, that we can become a bit more compassionate, a bit more understanding and less judgmental of the people we deal with and treat them fairly. So enjoy the discussions. One group that I missed out, representatives of other civil society of organizations, thank you for joining us, but enjoy it very much. We've thrown our resources on television, radio, and online behind this, because these days online is a big deal, social media as well, and hopefully we'll take this conversation as far as possible. So welcome once again and enjoy the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, let's put our hands together for Mr. Michael Otiejay, Acting General Manager News and also General Manager MG Digital. Thank you. Thank you so much for welcoming us officially to your home. Appreciate it. And we're live on Facebook, as I said earlier, on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and also on 3FM 92.7 for the many of you who are connected, either watching or listening to us as well. Now, how many of us didn't join the hashtag Never Again when this happened 365 days ago? Never again. Women are not witches. You know, the emotional response that we got after this incident. But 2 months later, maybe less, we all went to sleep. And unfortunately, the reality is dawning on us that this phenomenon, as unfortunate as it is, has actually been growing by the day. You put on your television and you see it. Pastors accusing mothers, grandmothers, sisters, aunties, daughters of witchcraft. In fact, during the conversation last year, we had a 9-year-old join us in the studio who was accused of witchcraft by her auntie who was taking care of her. She was sent to a prayer camp, kept there for 5 years. And she's grown. She's 22 years now. But the trauma, the experience is still living with her as an adult. So this is a big conversation. And that's how we intend to have it this morning. We want to play a documentary by a colleague of ours who took the trouble to travel to, then it was the 3 regions of the north, visited a number of the witch camps there to have a first-hand experience of what's going on beyond what we read and what we're told. Bellamundi gives us a 10-minute documentary about her visit to the witch camps. She'll be joining us right after to tell us her experience as well. Please. So if you're ready, we can play the documentary for our viewers on television to watch, on Facebook to watch, and on 3FM to listen.
Azum Adelma Kanda Banda could allow me to the young Kaptava to mana. Papa Way Papa Wayma Kanda Malva Katranuva Kalaf Batibanivo Kapsibakule Lafta Tibanivo Kapsinkulma Benum Borle Nima Bral Ameba never gained than Dan and Kafabama and only man Kandamara Gahamba Kana Tinuva Katabaso Kapzamba Kule. To me, Papa Mbembe became a Lalaka Kana Katanova. They cannot me Kabimo only the Buron took out a sword. Ship Maison Government Lavra Kabiti di Wahala. So young Papa Mbembe Yelmangre, Wahala Badira, but given no so. A bilat noon. Yili Dan and Seven Benny and song the back of Dira. The woman campusing at them Benma. Diri man campusing at them Benma, Ben Shadow down and Kappa. And tell the Dracuno. The Monkunya Naj in Zone, Katum He Capuyan and Tinya Nunda. How can you feel Tira? Niman and Galton Manama, Talo Pamba. Zulab and Mabatuna Tenunda, the camps man, the community Tarba. What done is Africa Zamuka, Kata Omalo, Dunkin. Wait to Burakala Sobantu. Carmen Kuma, you might rumpi with Adam Carmen Kubonta. The Zudnias you in the Pune, Mundikagu. Don't come Bumman Captain to not be Wahalani, the Bumman Gana Catabe. Those who in a bunkani to woman will yet to Am Pipam, Nils on the Pontial Panama, Dapun Sulant and now Sugum Palma. Some Pipam Nin Canani to the Tongue of Fukum Sil de Wahala, you caught it Dunia Woman.
Welcome back. It's the Day Show right here on TV3, and it's proudly brought to you by Forever Clear, GTP, Ghana AIDS Commission, and Out Multi-Purpose Spray and Coil. Now, the Free to Shine campaign lead by the First Lady is brought to you by the Ghana AIDS Commission under the auspices of the Office of the President. And also, just a reminder that you should try the Forever Clear Multi-Fruit Wash, and it contains benzoyl peroxide, and this of course you can use in collaboration with other products. What it does is it peels off the skin that feels blemished, that has pimples, acne, whatever the problem is. It just makes sure that it peels it off and leaves the skin looking fresh and beautiful. So try it and let me know. Now I'm seated here next to Hasia Husseini, and she's one of the women who was banished from her community after being accused of witchcraft. She's been in this new community, Kuku, for many years with the rest of her family, and she's here to tell us her story. Asia, thank you for joining us. So what community are you from? And how did you end up in Kuku?
son kan ma ka yene mane ji ma yele ba yele le mo drama muno yongwa mi muno bana shin tan mi muno yeto ashirkan mi re pen shi ko ti yana mana ne etam men ye ba yungo na fulan de ti anya ka ti yang mana mo ne ji ba ne ba yele to zoro bi tan mani ko kana ta ko karata pok mama ngama ukulu oya to ne changna yang mana ka sa an do bra lo bakwa na pae ta malang baminen bien ne ke kan bezan mai to le kana ban shi ba kuna to zoro ma ya ba amane o ni na ni dia ndaba yin zama.
So, when did this happen to you? And when they brutalized you, did they harm you physically? Did they use any cutlass? What did they do to you?
Tuzuro manda bin so kace dana tifitina. Do brana tmadanse. Do bragba. Bragba. Kace gbadare. Kan tuzuro ma bi tan malma. Nan danyen banye dan ko zanga.
So what happened to your family? Were you married at that time? And at that point when they banished you, were you given the chance to at least take some of your family members along with you? Or did you have to leave and not think about anybody else behind? So how did you feel when that happened to you? And what were you going to do at that point? Starting life all over, how were you going to manage? So did they have to perform any rituals when you got to Kuku to ascertain if you're really, guilty of what you were accused of, and what was the process like? What was the concoction? What was it? Was it blood? What exactly was it? So after the rituals were done and she mentioned that she was not a witch, and of course the rituals would determine if she was or not, what happened after? So what happens then to the rest of your family, your husband, and everybody that you left behind? If you refuse to go back, how would you get in touch with them? Were you not worried about their well-being? How do you feel currently? Do you still feel sad about what happened? And if you had your way, how would you change what happens to women in communities? Thank you so much, Hasiat Husseini, for speaking.
Put your hands together for Belamundi as she joins us now. Please put your hands together for her. She took the trouble together with the team to go up north to have this done. beyond what we saw, Bella, tell us, what was that experience you had coming face to face with what we read and see on television?
Well, thank you so much. And I mean, this is a very laudable idea to have a conversation about this. It's important that we do. And so good morning to everyone. And thank you for this opportunity. So this happened after, Madame Denteh was murdered. And we thought it would be necessary to experience it firsthand. It was a very long journey, but we finally got there. And for me, what was even more disturbing was the fact that the chief in the community, even though he was not comfortable with women being accused of witchcraft, his community, they were accepting these women and they were making them drink all kinds of concoction, which included blood from a fowl. And so I was concerned and I asked him that, I mean, if you don't think that women should be accused of witchcraft, why do you even allow them to go through the whole ritual process? And he said, well, that's what exists in the community. And so he also cannot allow them to come in because what if the accusations are true? And so that made me realize that even though on camera he'll tell you that I don't think it's right, they're still encouraging it, because if you're allowing the women to go through the ritual processes, then you're really not ready to end it. And that was my greatest concern. And I was hoping that for a community like Akua, where they claim, that they're against it, they would not even have to let these women go through this. And we spoke to other community members. If you have the chance, I'm sure you can watch this online. And some of them said it on the side that we actually believe that some of them are witches. So we've allowed them to live separately from all of us. We don't allow our children to go to them, because if they weren't witches, they wouldn't have been accused of it. We spoke to other women, and she's not the only one. In fact, she's the youngest in that community. I remember we spoke to another woman who was very old. She should be above 100, but again, she's suffering from amnesia, so she doesn't remember a lot of the things. But she remembered vividly what happened to her in her village. And for her, her story was that she was the wealthiest among the people in her village. And usually when you're at the wealthiest, they assume that, your wealth is coming from other sources other than hard work. And so she was also accused of witchcraft, and they chased her out of the community. And so she lost all her business, she lost all her money, she could not take anything. And she's living in the poorest environment. It's so heartbreaking. And so for her, she regrets that after working so hard to take care of her family, her own family could not even support her. Because they also encouraged the community to banish her. And for her, that's what really hurt her, and it was going to be very difficult for her to forgive them. In fact, we asked her if she would want to connect with her family, and she said no, even though she was the breadwinner for her home, because she said she could not believe that that's what they did to her, especially when she was not guilty of what they were accusing her of. And that broke my heart, because you go into Akua, and there are lots of, these mud houses that these women live. I mean, you should see they sleep on the floor. You should see the pans they eat from, and they cannot cook because they are very old and frail. And so they rely on the benevolence of other community members. So every evening, and we were there till late, and so we saw it. So another family cooked, and they brought one of the old women who had lost her sight. And so during the day, she's just sitting on her small compound and just whiling away time. In the evening, in the morning, afternoon, and evening, they send her some food, which was very little, by the way, but she had to rely on it. Nobody comes to visit, no family member, absolutely nothing. And that's going to be her life until she unfortunately passes on. And they said they were very lonely, but they preferred the solitude because they'd rather be here by themselves than be with family members who accused them of witchcraft just because they were doing better or because someone else died and they needed to pin it on someone. And so since she was old, it was easier for them to pin it on her. And, she showed us some scars. So machete wounds and stuff, they actually inflict pain on you. And if you don't run away, then you end up being killed. So these are some of the things that they live through. And this is a reality. It hasn't ended. Unfortunately, it hasn't. And that's why we need to keep talking about it and hoping that, we can also implement some policies to ensure that these women are protected. So thank you so much again for this opportunity. I'll end it here. I know that you do a great job.
Thank you so much. Please, let's put our hands together for Bella Mundi. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And the most important point there is, unfortunately, this is still happening. It's happening, and that video you saw of her was after Madame Akua Denteh was murdered. Okay. And you would have thought that in other jurisdictions, there should be a catalyst for permanent change, for structures, policies to be put in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again. But unfortunately, 365 days on, Our keynote speaker has been working on extensively some research about what's happening in the 3 regions of the North on issues with women being accused of witchcraft. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from our keynote speaker, Professor John Azuma, Executive Director of the Sane Institute, our partners. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you, Media General, for this partnership. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Sheikh Rumayao, an old colleague and friend. Thank you, Madam Irene from FIDA, and also from our gentleman from the Ministry of Gender. This is a very important topic. As the previous speakers have said, after the lynching of Madam Akua Denteh on the 23rd of July, this was followed by another attempted lynching of Madam Mary Ibrahim on the 29th of August. And that happened in Sumpini, also in the West Gonja district area. These incidents have happened, and there was a lot of outcry at the time. But as Alfred said earlier, and Bella also said, everything went quiet after that. When everything went quiet, we decided to do something about it from the Sane Institute. We went to do some research, and we visited all the camps in the northern region. And I just want to share a few of some of the findings with you. Like Alfred said earlier, in other places, this kind of incident will be it will lead to serious changes. You all, I guess, would have heard of the George Floyd incident in the United States. It catapulted America into serious soul-searching conversations. And they had to make the House of Representatives pass a law, a law was passed in the name of George Floyd, called the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, to deal with police brutality. This is how change happens in society. That tragedy leads to change. In Ghana, the tragedy, people talk about it and it ends there, and nothing happens. And when that happens, the only way to get the change to happen is civil society. George Floyd, it took civil society to demonstrate regularly on the street, to make noise for this to happen. And I want to submit that unless civil society, organizations, and the public and the media keep an eye on this, nothing is going to happen. So some of the findings that we came across was that the camps, as we said, are all located in the northern region, the former northern region. People talk about it's in the north, it's in the north. But we don't know where these camps are. They are all in the former northern region. There are 5 camps, and we visited all of them. Again, one of the startling findings was that of all the victims that we found in the camps, and we listed the victims, we talked to them, we sent some research assistants, they gathered the data. When we gathered the data, the 95% of the victims come from 2 ethnic groups. 95% of the victims in the camps come from 2 ethnic groups. That is the Konkoma and the Dagomba ethnic groups. Again, it's very important that we know this and we know how to tailor our education to these areas. There were some from Mamprusi, from Bimoba, and all the other areas. That doesn't mean that there are no accusations in the other areas. There are a lot of accusations going on in the Upper East, in the Upper West, throughout Ghana, as Alfred has said. But the women in the camps, this was the demographics that we found out there. Nearly all the victims, contrary to what people say, nearly all the victims want to go home. They want to leave the camp. But some of them is anger, is the pain, is the bitterness. They feel betrayed. They feel like their husbands let them down. Their children let them down. Some of them, their own children accuse them. How can I go back to that child again? So they are there with anger, with bitterness, with trauma. What we saw on Akua Denteh and Madam Mary was horrific. The physical injuries, we saw that. The women I met in the camps, you don't see physical injuries. Some of them will remove their clothes and show you the scars. But for most of them, the injuries is psychological. You see it in their eyes. You see it in their demeanor. They are traumatized. They are angry. They are bitter because they don't know what they have done to deserve that. And so the pain that you see there is deep. And one of the visits, I went back to my guest room in Tamale and I couldn't sleep. I was laying there, myself traumatized, looking into the eyes of those women. This is how the place is. Nearly all the victims are accused by family members. And one other thing is common there. Most of these victims come from polygamous homes, where the polygamy, the institute of polygamy, where the rivalry, the jealousy, I was raised in a polygamous home myself, so I know what I'm talking about. One woman's children are doing well, another woman's children are not doing well, and the one whose children are doing well is a witch. So you have all of these things happening there. And the polygamous institution is also part of the whole complex matter. The priests themselves compared themselves to doctors. They said, look, we are medical doctors, like doctors. We sit here, they bring the women, we treat them. Some of the women we declare innocent. But even the family will not accept them back. Even when the women have been declared innocent or they are treated, the family said they don't want her back. And sometimes, like we said, the women themselves are so betrayed, so angry, they don't want to even go back home again. So you find that also there. So there comes like Kukuo. I asked the chief at Kukuo, I said, so Kukuo has become the dumping ground of women that society doesn't like. And he said, yes, unfortunately, that's true. It's like a dumping ground. Quickly, one of the things that I want to say also is that the camps are not closed. Women, they go and come. So I wondered, why can't they just get up and go? They can leave anytime they want. But the problem is that psychologically, they cannot leave. The women, unless they perform the final rituals, they cannot go. And sometimes, in some of the places, the final rituals cost money. They don't have the money. And even those who want to leave don't want to go home. And they don't have the means to leave to another community. What can they do? So they are trapped in there. So psychologically, the women themselves are very trapped there. One of the recommendations that we have made some recommendations, and I'll quickly mention them. We've made the recommendation on relief. You've heard that the women, what to eat is a problem. What to drink sometimes is a problem. Relief is very important. Relief is very important for these vulnerable victims. We saw some of the women in Gushegu, they go to the market, sweep the ground after the market, and they gather the millet, the beans, the rice, the corn, they gather it all together with the sun. And they take it home, they put it in water, and they separate them one by one. That is how these women eat. And like you heard, some of them were very successful back in their villages. They were trading, they were doing well, and they have been put in this situation. So the women, they need help. However, the help can also be a problem. Because in some cases, some NGOs will go and build some structures there. They go and do major things there, which is good. But it encourages and feeds into the structures. Because then the structures are owned by the priests. It's their property, and the camp will be there perpetually. Sometimes too, the relief aid is taken there, and it doesn't get to the women. It's seized from them by the community. One community, a borehole was dug for the women, and the community seized it from them. They can't even go and fetch water from that borehole again. So the relief has to be smart, and what we recommend is that we should prioritize relief and support to those who can go and want to go to settle in different communities. When we said that we have been getting calls from some of the women who want to go and settle in different communities. And it's about a rent, it's about helping them with a rent here and there, and we are helping them to go and settle in different communities. That's one of the areas we can do. Education is another area of recommendation. Education is very important, that we need to educate our people to understand the causes of their problems. First of all, the education, if you go up north, I travel down the road very quickly. One of the accusations against Madam Akua Denteh was that there's no rainfall. And because there's no rainfall, the youth don't have jobs, and they have to attack this poor old lady. When you coming down from Tamale, even before Tamale, from Walawale, you will see that on the roadside, there are tons of bags of charcoal. Where are those charcoal coming from? It's coming from the trees, the few trees there. You cut the trees, we burn the charcoal, bring it to Accra, bring it to Kumasi, and sell. And when there are no trees, it affects the rainfall. And when there's no rainfall, we go and blame the whole lady in the house. So we need to educate people. Sometimes basic sanitation. Look at all the young girls in Accra doing Kayaye. They come from the northern region. When we harvest the trees, and it's the women who suffer the most. They are those who have to come here and fend for their lives. So there are a lot of things. The road is not good. The young person takes a motor. When they are riding on their motor, they feel that they are invincible. And you even see that in Accra here, when they ride the motorbikes. Whip, 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 whip. They go and hit something, they die. Then they say it's an old lady in the house that has killed them. They will not blame the road. They will not blame the one riding the motorbike. It's the old lady. So again, we need to educate people to know some of the causes of these things. The last but one recommendation is legislation. Like we've said, in some places, this will be a cause for change. This will be a cause for change. We are calling for legislation to be passed to criminalize witchcraft accusation. We sent a petition to Parliament. Last year, in the heat of the murder, the Speaker of Parliament made statements that they were working on the legislation. We want to follow on that. Finally, reintegration. Reintegration is very important. We are praying that the chiefs, if the chiefs can do work on reintegration, if the chiefs, the traditional priest told me, they said, look, if the chiefs themselves will make a declaration that any woman who they have performed the ritual can go home, that the women can go home safely. And except those who are angry and bitter that they don't want to go. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. But there are some of them, if the chiefs make a declaration that they are allowed to go home, they will be able to go home safely. So again, that is something that we need to work on, reintegration. My concluding appeal is that when I watched the video of Madam Akua Denteh, the bludgeoning, the horrific beating, some of us could not even watch it. I know some friends who said they couldn't even watch it. For me, that was shocking enough. But you know what shocked me the most was the people who gathered around. And the people who gathered around and were cheering these people on to beat, that was what shocked me the most. The crowd, the silent crowd, the cheering crowd, that was what frightened me the most. This morning, Madam Akua Denteh's son was telling me, in the crowd was a teacher with a degree, who was cheering and shouting religious slogans for this poor old lady to be killed. If we remain silent, we join the cheering crowd. If we remain silent, one of the slogans in the George Floyd murder was that silence is violence. We cannot afford to remain silent as Ghanaians, as civil society leaders, as queen mothers. If we remain silent, we join in the violence. We pray that Madam Akua Denteh will be the last victim, of this kind of horrific belief. And it is my hope that you will join with us and we campaign for the law to be passed to criminalize witchcraft accusation in Ghana. Thank you very much.
Still in some witch camps across the northern part of the country, not to talk about those in the southern part and in churches who are being accused of witchcraft. We want to find out if there are even legislations in place to deal with this, even before Prof. Talks about the formulation of laws. Are there existing laws to deal with these practices? We have a lawyer as well to talk to us on it. And after this incident that led to the death of Madame Akua Denteh. She's paid the ultimate price. What has government done beyond the verbal commitment? We have a representative from the ministry that is giving the mandate to ensure that this is done. We also have Sheikh Aremia Shaibu to speak to us from the religious perspective, as is what's also been done to respond to this situation as we had it last year. But, Prof, you talked about the commitment of the chiefs in the northern part of the country to deal with this. Fortunately, even though he couldn't be here, he sent us a video message. So we want to take the message from Chogu Na Muhammadu Al-Hassan II. He's a chief of Chogu in Tamale, one of the areas where this practice is quite rife as well. Please, let's take that video message from the chief.
The conditions of alleged witches at the witch camps in the northern and northeast regions are not the best. The women live in very pathetic situations characterized by abject poverty and food insecurity. They are hungry. Their health conditions very bad and their rooms very disorganized. Government has a role to play, especially in ensuring their security, safety and comfort. A national discourse on their welfare should be led by government, as well as their living conditions and place of abode. These women cannot go back to their homes, and since they feel safe at the various camps, government should develop these camps to make it more habitable to them. Finally, this, I think, is long overdue, and the time to act is now.
To act is now. That is Chogu Na Muhammadu Al-Hassan II, Chief of Chogu in Tamale. Please, he's not here, but he's watching us. Put your hands together for him. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we go into a panel conversation. They're already seated as I introduced them earlier. Let's start off quickly. We'll come to you, the audience, for some questions. So for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, it's 3FM 92.7, streaming live on Facebook as well as on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Also on 3FM 92.7, you're watching us on TV3 as well. Let's start off with you, Irene. So are there existing, even before the regulations, lawyer, that Prof expects that be put in place to respond to this, are there existing laws that can check this phenomenon of women being accused of witchcraft, lynched, losing their lives?
Yeah, there are existing laws, but I think that we need a specific legislation. As he said, we need to pass I think, Witchcraft Acquisition Control Act. That is a specific problem that needs a specific legislation to curb it. And let me thank Prof for his work and TV3 support for throwing light on this. As FIDA, we are there to fight for women, and seeing Prof being so emotional and ready about this, I'm touched. I'm available for any legislation drafting or anything.
Wonderful.
to support.
Please, let's put our hands together for FIDA for their support.
Support this, yeah. But then we also have constitutional provisions that we can evoke to protect. We also have provisions in the Criminal Offences Act. Specifically, I think that Section 314A of the Criminal Offences Act of 1960, Act 229, it says that a person who sends to or receives at a place any other person, so those who are sending, those who are receiving, it's a chain. So those who send, those who receive at a place or any other person, or B, participate in or is concerned in a ritual or customary activity in respect of any other person with the purpose of subjecting the other person to a form of ritual or customary servitude, or a form of forced labor related to a customary ritual, commits a criminal offense and is liable to a term of imprisonment not less than 3 years.
Not less than 3 years.
Not less than 3 years. So I appreciate that there is a problem, and those camps are there trying to solve the problem in a way. But if you look at this act, those camps are clearly crime scenes. They are crime scenes. Now, that problem is a social protection problem. So the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, they need to rise up quickly with the social welfare. They have the national mandate to ensure that if a population or a part of our population is encountering violence or threat of violence and they need shelter, they have every right to ensure that we have a shelter for these women so that they can at least run to. And then that shelter is regulated properly. The ministry is supervising those that are in charge of those shelters. I mean, the Domestic Violence Secretariat, they have all the procedures and authorization and certification or whatever about those places that people can run to in case there is violence and other things. But those camps that we have, as we speak, they are crime scenes. And I think that, yeah, they need to be abolished immediately. The government need to establish proper shelters. And you see, the shelter comes with a lot of regulation. There will be psychologists there. They will go through that. As we speak, there isn't any objective analysis as to who a witch is. And even before the law, as we speak, we don't take spiritual things to court because the judge cannot ascertain what that is. So it has to do more of political will and understand that the population, a part of our population is being abused and violated, which is unconstitutional in part. So in summary, I will say that we have constitutional provisions. Article 15 and 17 talks about our rights should not be, violated. We should live in dignity. 17 is against discrimination. If you look at the women, majority are women. They are of a certain age, and other factors that the Prof spoke about. It could be even property that they are fighting over.
Absolutely.
And they will just accuse you. They have to just look at your face and say that
sometimes it depends on the role you play in the dream of someone.
Exactly.
I mean, if
so there is no objective analysis as to what really this is. So if I don't like you, I can start the rumor around town, and then the men will jump on you and throw you to wherever they are. So I think we should be serious about our citizens and show concern. And then we'll pass this particular act, and then the education will have to go down. So, as I said in summary, we have constitutional provisions that should be protecting. We also have international protocols and conventions as far as human rights are concerned, and our Criminal Offences Act. We also have provisions in it. Even the assault, we have criminal assault and battery. So there are laws that can currently protect, but as I said, we need a specific legislation.
So specific, please put your hands together for lawyer. This is very enlightening. The law cannot determine who a witch is, but then people are determining who a witch is by either looking at the person's face, how wealthy the person is, or the role the person is playing in someone's dream. If you are killing the person, you are a witch. If you are serving food, you are not. Imagine if you are giving the person money, you are not a witch. But if you are pouring water on the person, even lack of rainfall is as a result of someone. But the law is responsive to society, isn't it?
Yeah.
It reflects what's happening in society. How come that this is going on? Lawyer, we know it. It's an age-old criminal act.
Yes.
But the law has not responded to that, even with the existing laws that you talk about.
Yes.
How come we haven't prosecuted anybody?
Yes. And usually the law also has procedures. Somebody has to file a complaint. So what we have to do immediately is to get a group of volunteers that are willing to prosecute matters like that and support and advise and direct. That if, and you know, I wasn't capturing clearly the language of the lady that was interviewed. The monitor is far away from me. I couldn't read the translations,
right.
But I could gather that a group of men just came for her after she was accused.
Absolutely.
Yes, of that. And as the law has just cleared out, those who came, those who accused, those who captured, those who took, they are all in the chain.
I see.
So the domestic violence units will also come in because most of the accusers are family members. And whenever you are in a domestic relationship with somebody, you fall under the Domestic Violence Act. So the combination of the Domestic Violence Act as well as the Criminal Offences Act could be revoked to help these women. So if there are observers that are concerned, the Domestic Violence Act allow anybody with information of the crime to file a complaint. You don't need to be a member of the person's family. You don't need to know the person. But if you're observing a crime under the Domestic Violence Act, especially that is being perpetrated between family members who are in a domestic relationship, you can file a complaint about the crime, and then the police are allowed to investigate. I think that if we see some few prosecutions, it will calm down. Whilst we try to work on the specific legislation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. There are some people who are standing trial for Madame Akua Denteh's murder. Prof will give us an update on what's happening with that particular case. But Mr. Ephraim Kwabla is representing the Ministry of Gender. So since this thing happened, I mean the murder of Madame Akua Denteh a year ago, what has been done to ensure that at least we start a conversation, or at least putting permanent structures, systems and policies in place so that, I mean, well, it's happening, so that we don't stop it, we stop what's going on?
Yeah. I first want to commend Prof for the hard work. It's rather unfortunate that in this time of our generation we are having such a conversation like this. But then, even prior to the unfortunate demise of Madame Akua Denteh, with the help of Shraj and an Action Aid, the ministry was able to close 2 of these witch camps and then aided with reintegration. And then after, upon the demise of Madame Akua Denteh, we had a national consultation meeting, an emergency meeting, of which Prof himself was invited, and then we had stakeholders from all relevant authorities present at the meeting. Right after that, the sector minister with the committee on the Parliament Committee on Gender and then Children paid a working visit to these areas in the northern region, including the deputy minister and then the chief director of the ministry. And then upon that, some recommendations were made after conversations have been had with the inmates over there. And then the minister proposed or streamlined structures, such as putting them on the LEAP program so that it will help improve their living standards, and also made some donations and other things. But from the research that Prof did, you would notice some of the recommendation is what education and sensitization, which is priority on the ministry's agenda right now. Through its agencies and departments, we are doing serious sensitization on this practice, and then using our regional offices in the regions, especially under the Department of Gender, every platform we get to make sure that we sensitize communities that are affected, and even those that are minimal, But then it happens everywhere, in every community, every sector. We have this witchcraft accusation. So there's a need for us to sensitize, and then we use these offices as well. And also, we had a national stakeholders meeting again with training, collaboration with UNFPA just last week with Queen Mothers, and then we trained them. And then one of the issues that were tabled to be sensitized on was the witchcraft accusations, and come up with guidelines, strategies, and frameworks to be able to address this phenomenon.
Mr. Kobler, I just want to just come in a bit. So, at what point does the ministry consider education as enough? Because you see, this thing has been going on for so long.
Yes.
Ignorance of the law is no excuse. There are some people who know exactly what they are doing, that what they are doing is wrong, and they claim ignorance of it. There are some people who believe that this is the time to introduce the cane and whip them in line, and not allow them to hide under the cloud of ignorance that they don't know what they are doing. When they were killing Madame Akua Denteh, they knew exactly what they were doing. I mean, at what point do you continue to educate criminals?
That's but it also goes, we are actually ready as a ministry to work with all the CSOs and NGOs that are championing this, and also agree that there needs to be a legislation. So moving forward, I think that will be one of the priorities. Having a legislation that will specifically address this issue of witchcraft. And then even though there are legislation in others, like the Act 29, and then other provisions, the DV Act, domestic violence and all of that, and like she said, assault and battery alone is even an offense, and then the bystanders standing and then watching the event, all those ones are also abetting to the crime that is being happened. So we actually need the legislation to address this particular inhuman phenomenon.
Sheikh, let me come to you now. This phenomenon is also deeply rooted in religion. I know that when this happened a year ago, the chief imam was incensed about it. You issued a statement on it. What has been going on from your circles to engage the traditional leaders in these areas to begin to reason about what to do to stop this practice?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And let me also add my voice of commendation to Prof for the efforts, and greetings to my colleagues in the panel. Really, I remember very well, it's about a year ago, and I was standing at the GBC when we did our virtual Eid celebration. That is the platform on which I had to really speak the mind of Islam against that kind of treatment that we saw meted out to that very innocent woman. Something we find very reprehensible and very condemnable, objectionable, something that as I view it myself, I can see in the plight of Auntie Akua Denteh, in her plight, I can see my own mom, my own mother. I can see my own mother probably going through that kind of ordeal. Like it's been said, once you don't have the empirical approach to be able to say this is that or that. So how were people able to determine that this is a witch or this is that? And that is the danger of it. So I think we are all at risk. My mother, your auntie, your daughter is at risk. Any day somebody just decides that he wants to accuse her, he can, and then the most horrible and awful manifestation of how society will act is what we saw on Auntie Akua Denteh. Yeah, that's exactly what we saw. And I think the threat is against all of us. From the Muslim point of view, I think what we have been doing is just to use the pulpit. I cannot say that there has been any direct or deliberate program, but that is to use our teachings about the protection of human life and the respect for the sacredness of human life. For example, around this time when we are celebrating, we use the Prophet's testamentary message. But like he said in one of his speech that your life, your dignity, and your property is as inviolable as this sacred day of yours. In other words, so if you are a Muslim, then you hear this, that as a people, when you are living, the blood and the life of any person is inviolable, like the inviolability of the sacredness of Mecca, for example. So it's something that we need to continue. And this brings to my mind, I think I like this idea where we must be deliberate. I'm thinking about anti-witchcraft accusation campaign.
Anti-witchcraft
accusation campaign, which comes at different levels. One of them is to fight for legislation. But legislation is not enough. Witchcraft belief is an entrenched belief. It's metaphysical. The people believe in it, and it's perpetual. It's there. Once it is a long-term ancient mindset, and it cuts across the whole large society, thinking that just law will be enough will be a bit on the low side. So we want to look at it at two levels. Once it is a mindset, what should be the approach for us to deal with it, such that no one can just rise and then be accusing people, and then those who will fall to it now will face the consequence. Well, that's when the law there must be a way by which we are able to monitor such accusations and get the law enforcement agencies to be informed. There must be a certain system within society, certain volunteers, for example, who are there once they have the intelligence that a possibility of accusation of witchcraft is there, then we set the monitoring system in place to ensure that once it happens, all those connected with accusations are already caught by the net, including those who did the act itself. But let me say also that I was worried, and I think that we must emphasize this, that those who were actually exacting that kind of horrible treatment to this 90-year-old woman were women.
Yes, we saw it in the video. That's true.
But I think we need to educate ourselves, because I know, according to my belief, no, women represent a certain attribute of God, of his compassion, his affection, and that are special attributes. So that's why when children cannot go anywhere, it's the bosom of their moms that they go. And I think that the women should maintain that kind of attribute. We should not see them. I would have loved to see that it is an irresponsible man who was doing that, so that I can be able to, but say that, look, the man is wicked. The man is wicked. It's callous. It's callous. But we need to really get our women also not to be the tools that are used. The tools that are used in the accusation or in the exaction of that kind of horrible and awful treatment to fellow women. I think religious leaders and chiefs and opinion leaders in society need to be brought on board. Yeah, because these are the voices that are heard. The chiefs, for example, are the repositories of our beliefs and values. So if it is part of their belief, then you can see a certain contradiction. Even as you make an attempt to deal with the issue, it's an entrenched belief, and the repository of our values, the one who holds and preserves our value, believes in it.
Absolutely.
Believes in it. So if you don't get those who matter in this thing, you know, society the way it is, you get somebody to the police station, and then before the chief himself is coming to relieve the person. Thank you.
And that's something we saw. Thank you, Sheikh. Please put your hands together for Sheikh. That's something we saw.
I just want to say something.
Yes, lawyer.
Yeah, the law will not take away the beliefs of the people, but what it will do is to regulate their behavior in respect of the belief. For example, if there is a provision that says that if you have suspicion of somebody of being a witch, your first step is to go and report to the nearest domestic violence unit. That is how it works. So the law will not take away the belief, but it will regulate your behavior if you have that suspicion. Because you yourself, you are going to take the person to probably the camp for the chief priest to diagnose the witchcraft. So you only have suspicion at that stage. And your duty then is to report to the nearest police station or the domestic violence unit so that the woman is not quickly attacked on the spot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, lawyer. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Kwabla, on this, because you mentioned at a point that when the perpetrators of the crime are arrested, you have the chief and the residents actually massing up. We saw it when a 19-year-old school dropout who says he's a witch catcher was arrested, and the chief and the people in the area massed up at the police station demanding his release, even though he was beaten and violating people's human rights. When the law comes to their aid, they resist the law. So I'm going to stay with lawyer a bit because of the earlier question I asked about. At what point does education end for us to start whipping people in line with the law? Lawyer.
As for legislation, it only helps to regulate behavior, as I said. For example, we have the Criminal Offences Act, but does that mean that there are no criminals in the country? Yeah. So, but at least there's something to fall on. And then if you make the choice to behave in a particular way, then there is an implied consequence that you are willing to go to jail. So it's a choice at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. Thank
you very much. Mr. Kwabla, there was a proposal by the ministry when this happened that they were going to turn the which comes into care homes. Yes. That's one of the things that the previous...
Shelters. Yeah, devoid of the kind of...
human rights violations.
Yes.
How far have you gone with that?
Because, like Prof said, most of them do not want to leave the camps. So then how do we make sure that their living situations and conditions are proper per human rights regulations? So those things were, those recommendations were made, those structures has been drawn by the ministry last year upon the visit. So work is being done to see how best the place can be rehabilitated and restructured and possibly renamed. And also I would like to add to what lawyer is saying, which is a very important point with the legislation. But personally, in my point of view, if we want to really curb this, the legislation in itself has to be a strict liability offense, in my opinion, so that where with in implementation of the legislation, we wouldn't have where prosecutors will have issues with actually trying to develop or trying to come up with elements that form the offense. But if it's a strict liability offense in its drafting form, where you accuse somebody and without any reasonable grounds, you just accuse somebody and you cause harm, whether a threat of harm or whether fear or pain to the person in one way or the other, that legislation should be able to strictly address the issue without you. It's just like defilement. You defile somebody, the court is not going to ask whether you intended to do it or not. You've defiled the person, please go. That's it. Like, this is the kind of like legislation that would help really address this problem on its feet now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you're watching us on TV3, we're live also on 3FM 92.7, also on 3FM 92.7 on Facebook, TV3 Ghana on Facebook. This is an honest, soul-searching and reflection that we're having this morning, 365 days ago. Madame Akua Denteh, 90-year-old, was lynched. She's lost her life. She's paid the ultimate price for this conversation. Unfortunately, 365 days on, we haven't seen any far-reaching permanent structures and policies, systems to ensure that this does not continue. We continue seeing, reading about women who are continuously accused of witchcraft, and nothing is done about it. And that's why today, a year on, Media General has created this platform to have this all-important conversation. Next, we have the son of Madame Akua Denteh, now late. Madame Akua Denteh. Her son is here, Dominic Mahama. Please put your hands together for him. He is going to just tell us briefly. Dominic, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All the way from
the north.
Salaga is here this morning. Thank you. Tell us what's happening. How's the family doing as we speak?
Actually, we are very grateful for what has happened. That's the will of God. I would like to, first of all, the family is doing well. We are coping, we are managing, and things are going on. Although we cannot forget, when I entered this studio and I saw my mom, actually I was shocked. And I would like to thank the organizers of this program for their immense contribution, and also in remember of our late mother. We actually appreciate it. Our second thanks goes to the government for arresting the culprit, although the case is still in court. And I cannot say much because the court will determine the outcome of it. Thirdly, I would like to thank the media, especially TV3, for their immense contribution for what they have done. Actually, our mother died as a result of accusation, and TV3, and we are very grateful to them and the media, especially one of their correspondents, Mr. Amako,
yes, who is Christopher Amako.
Yeah, Christopher Amako, who is following the case and is also doing well and is supporting us always in the house, and we are giving every information. Lastly, our mother died. She should be the last, the first and the last of this witchcraft accusation. So we are appealing to the government, the media, the stakeholders, everybody, the imams, the malams, and everybody, the civil society, NGOs, that this canker, this barbaric issue should be a thing of the past. Our mother should be the last. Actually, for the past 1 year now, although I'm a teacher, sometimes when you are teaching and you remember what your mom, people who respect you, your students respect you, everybody, and somebody will go and beat your mother to death, lynch her to death for the fact that she's a witch. It's never the best. And we are praying that a law, we all are praying that a law must pass. Not for my mother, she has gone, and we can never get her back again. But others should not go through that trauma. Where people are there, the community, there are a lot of them. Sometimes during war, most of this thing will pass away, leaving the old ladies and the women. Some of them will refuse to marry and they will live in the community. So we are praying that soul will rest in a perfect peace. And I also thank the organizers for inviting me to come here. I actually appreciate it. And everybody that has made it possible to be present here, and in memory of my late mother, Akua Denteh. May the soul rest in a perfect peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for Dominic Mahama.
Thank you.
Son of the late Madame Akua Denteh. Thank you so much. Now, accepting that, like mother paying the sacrifice for this with her life. Unfortunately, this continues. That's how sad the situation is. But we're hoping that just what you have said and what people have watched you and heard you say today will be the catalyst that we need to have that urgent response to address the situation that we're all confronted. We want to come to the audience now. You've heard them. If any of you have any questions you want to ask, I have a couple of them, but this is the time for you. You can put up your hand. The microphone will be given to you. I see Kosami already. Your hand is up. You can ask the first question. Yeah, that's the person next to you. Dominic, kindly hand over the microphone to you. Yes, thank you very much. Helen Apiampofo is going to be coordinating the question time. Yes, Kosami, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank Media General for taking up this issue of accusation of people being witches and making sure we find solution to it. I think after listening to all our resource persons, they talk about education, they talk about, prompting us to when we see some of this action going to take place, what do we do? I, coming from local government advocacy group, I always talk about the breaks in our governance system, in which this education we are talking about is not going down to the people. I think our leaders in this country, as the representative of the Minister of Gender have said, after listening to him, I want to know how. If you talk, they will say, oh, they are working with the assembly. But meanwhile, at the assembly level, the decentralized departments of the assembly is the people to the government institution. We don't see that kind of collaboration between the others. If you go to the assembly, we have a committee called Social Services Committee. That's supposed to be providing us with information on all of these things that we want information on. We need data, we need information to be able to deal with that. But if there are breaks in the system, it creates problem for us. We can foment laws. But if the education is not getting down to the people, that creates all the problem for us. Because of time, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any more? Or you have a question yourself?
Yeah, I want to make some contribution. I want to thank my brother Kosami for inviting me to this program. It is so heartbreaking for me anytime I hear things like this, perpetrated against women especially. And the urgency of the situation is that these things are now happening in the religious institutions, circles, especially in the churches, where people are being, branded witches and persecuted. And I find it so disturbing because we have government in place. You see, there should be some political will on the part of the political players, to actualize the things that we are discussing here today, so that there could be some action, like lawyer said. The laws are there, but what are we doing with these things? The policies are there. What are we doing with them? So it is very important for some action to be taken.
Yes.
And I think that governments cannot do it alone. Civil society organizations should rise up, like in the Floyd case in the US. Because it's happening. It's still happening. And when I see the religious institutions, which are supposed to be liberating institutions, to liberate us from physical and spiritual bondage, who are themselves become perpetrators of these things, is so disheartening. So there's something must be done. There should be some political pragmatism, and others, all of us, should rise. It shouldn't be just talk, so that we can do something about it.
I thank you very much. What's the name, please?
My name is Fred Agoble. I'm from the local government advocacy group.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We have one next person behind you. And the point you make about leadership. Leadership is everything. And these conversations, we would have it, yes. And that's why we have somebody from the ministry, so that he can also pass it on to the people. We have members of parliament who are also monitoring this program as well. So thank you so much. Ellen is here, please.
Yes, I think it's still morning. Good morning. My name is Samuel Agboche. I work with Amnesty Ghana, and I'm happy to associate ourselves with this program. Of course, since the demise of our mother, we have put together a coalition of civil societies against witchcraft accusation and related offenses. So, Council, I will go for witchcraft accusation and related offenses. That was the recommendation by the coalition of civil society against witchcraft accusation and related offenses. Of course, Sunny Institute is one of the members. Amnesty is a member, and others. I was in Kafaba myself, in the midst of the death of our mother. I led the investigation team from Amnesty International. We were the first institution that visited the community even on the day of the funeral. We are so strong with the advocacy of the law because our interaction with the Kafaba chief and other elders of the community, the Kafaba chief told us that, look, he would have loved that this thing will not happen again. But the power of the youth, the power of the community, the chiefs and the queen mothers, we can educate them, we can organize whatever sensitization for them. But the power holders are the youth in the community. They hold the power. There are people in the community that holds the power. The chief and the queen mothers are just ceremonial heads. The chief told us that he would have loved that there is a legislation, there's a law that can back their advocacy to say that, yes, the law says don't do it, and you've done it, so go. The police will take you. And so the coalition is so strong on the legislation, and I must commend TV3 since the beginning of, since last year, and especially Amako. He took us to Kafaba.
Christopher Amako, yes.
Please send our appreciation to him. The guy has been so strong.
Watching you right now. Please, let's put our hands together for
So,
our Northern and Savannah regional correspondent.
In fact, when it was
Christopher Amako,
when it was tough for the police of Salaga to take us to Kafaba, they told us, yes, they told us the security, they cannot guarantee our security in Kafaba. And that if Amnesty goes to Kafaba, we go at our own risk. We have to consult Amako.
Christopher
Amako.
Wonderful.
And we decided that no, we cannot come to Northern Region for this case without visiting Kafaba. Our story will not be complete. And he was covering everything live. Every step that we took, everybody that we spoke with, he covered it. And live, we appreciate. He was part of us. I said, no, we can go. Nothing will happen to us. In fact, our going...
Wonderful. Please.
Our going...
Thank you so much. So Christopher Marco is actually watching and listening to you now.
Yes, he should listen to me. I appreciate all that he did.
Thank you.
When we went there. In fact, it was his intervention and our intervention that made the chief left Kafaba and reported himself to the police.
Wow. Please, can we do this again? Let's. we can't appreciate him enough, Ellen. Thank you so much. There are questions, but I just want to get responses from Sheikh and then Zakwabla as well. Yes, so Sheikh, you please give us, because
thank you very much. Well. I may have to quickly leave you now because today is Friday.
You're going to pray, and we accept that.
Yeah, I think I'm excited about this idea of putting together a certain kind of network of action against this. And I'm trying to look at the scenario of this sexual harassment, how it was done, and now men are very careful when they get too close to any woman. Yeah, I mean, if you misbehave around a woman, I mean, you know how the law will deal with you. And I think that's the way we need to approach this. And it's multi-sectorial. Yeah, and you can find that it cuts across sectors of our society. And those relevant stakeholders need to be put together, and deliberate program of action need to be put together, both in the short, medium, and long term. That there must be a period within we are telling ourselves that by so and so a period, this is how we want to see our society with respect to witchcraft accusation. I think that anything less this, for me, will mean that we'll still be speaking our big English. We'll go back and sit down. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, we have a whole ministry for gender. And you are still trying to see what has been done. I mean, so more practical to have dealt with the issue. You can see that at the heat of it, we make noise, but after some times it dies out. And I think that we must really bring the issue to the center of the society, and to say that never again should this thing happen. But the process to take us to that destination is an all-inclusive approach that we need to identify those who need to be brought in. And then let's see that this anti-witchcraft accusation campaign now becomes more successful.
Thank you so much. Sheikh Arimi Al-Shaibo, please. Thank you. Let's put our hands together for him. He's going to leave us. He's the spokesperson for the National Chief Imam. Thank you, Sheikh, for coming. And Mr. Kwabla, there was a question to you. If you could respond to it briefly, and Ellen will take some more questions. Yes.
I think it was a question on local government, collaboration with local government. And the ministry is constantly working with local government. Probably maybe in the district level you wouldn't know, but mostly everything that the ministry does at the regional or the district level is in consultation with local government, and then it goes down, streamlined down like that. And also, like lawyer mentioned earlier, to put up a shelter needs human resources, because like we all, through the research, we've come up with the fact that most of them have become traumatized, have some psychological issues. So we need to have clinical psychologists to assess this their living conditions, their situations, and also bring other expertise on board to make sure that we don't just do anything, but we have a good living situation to move away from the current status quo. So it's like I mentioned earlier, it's the work that is tabled on the topmost priorities of the ministry, and then work is being done on it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ellen, any more questions? Yes, and let's say we want to say thank you to those of you who are watching us on television. Appreciate it. Listen to us on 3FM 92.7 as well. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm Reverend Elijah Winnie Abu, a student from University of Ghana, and former chairman of the Presbyterian Go Home Project in Gambaga Witch Camp. Speaking from experience, I want to make a comment on what our brother from Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, you made mention that you are thinking of restructuring and renaming the witch camps in order to provide care and so on and so forth. From experience, I will add my voice that we need to be very cautious. In fact, when we say witch camps, it's not only the structures where the women live that we call witch camps and so on. Witch camps are more or less like sanctuaries. Witch camps, every witch camp is attached to a shrine. So if you interview most of them, they will tell you that they are running sanctuaries, but not camps. And so we have to be very careful when you are thinking of renaming the place. The custodians of the camps need to be consulted. This is very, very important. I remember when I was the board chairman in Gambaga and a district minister of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana. In fact, the Presbyterian Church of Ghana they took this initiative for a very long time, since 1960, to address the issue of witch camps in Ghana. And so it came to a time, I think the previous government wanted to do something.
Okay.
From the office of the First Lady, they decided to put up certain structures. In fact, when you are going to Gambaga, you are entering Gambaga at the outskirts, on your left-hand side, you see the buildings over there. In fact, they wanted to provide very nice accommodation for the women, workshop for them, even school for their children, and so on and so forth. A lot of things.
Okay.
But unfortunately, they couldn't do proper homework with the custodian of the camp.
So the conversation now is about the homework that you have to do.
Exactly.
So the ministry, and Prof, you also talk about this shelter.
Yeah.
But I want to say thank you to those of you who are watching us on television. Yeah. We're going to cross over for the news at 12, as well as we're live on 3FM 92.7. But Prof, a quick one on the shelters and then the consultation.
Yeah.
We'll come to lawyer for our final comments. Yes.
Thank you. I think the shelters issue is very important, and I thank Osofo for mentioning that. The camps are around shrines. And like Madam said, in fact, these camps can even be described as crime scenes. If you go and restructure it, what message are you sending? You are restructuring it around the shrine, and the shrine owner is the one who controls the camp. You cannot come and restructure it and tell the shrine owner what to do. Are you going to affirm the practices that is going on there? Are you going to support it, or are you not going to support it? If you support it, what message are you sending? So I think that we need to be very careful when we talk about going there and restructure, because the camp...
3FM 92.7, in collaboration with the Sane Institute of the University of Ghana, Legon, presents a forum on the one-year remembrance of the lynching of 90-year-old Madame Akua Denteh. This incident gained national attention and turned the conversation on the hitherto watered-down phenomenon of witch counts. But we let our guards down, and the phenomenon is on the rise again. Never again. Women are not witches. Speakers: Professor John Azuma, Executive Director, Sane Institute; Honorable Lariba Zura Abudu, Deputy Minister, Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection; Sheikh Aremiao Shaibo, Spokesperson and National Chief Imam; and lawyers.